Welcome to episode 7 of From the Cheap Seat, your internet news program that comes to you every week, except on the weeks I don't have time to record it. So, what you really need to do is you need to like us on Facebook. Go to Facebook, search From the Cheap Seats, like us. Also, as you see the arrow here pointing down to the red icon, click on that if you're on a PC or a laptop, and that will subscribe you to the YouTube channel. So then anytime we have a new video, you will be alerted and you can watch. So if one of those weekends happens where I'm just too busy to record, I don't think you miss anything because you'll get the notification next week. Anyway, the next 3 episodes are related. They are actually parts 1, 2, and 3 of the series. And I'm not going to talk about current events so much as a historical perspective on things that is really important to me. And I want to start by saying this. I understand people who slept through history class. I really do. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. Shoot, I'm going to admit to this. I slept through algebra class in high school and in college. My hope was that I could just squeak by and get a D, which I did. You see, I'm mathematically challenged. And then when you start throwing letters in the equation, man, I'm completely lost, so I might as well sleep. So I do get people who don't like history, so they slept through class. We students, well, I'm not a student anymore, but when we were students, we paid attention to the courses that were the most interest to us. Now, I can go through life without algebra because it does not affect me on a professional or personal level. I've lived without algebra since I walked out of the class of algebra, gosh, in the 80s, and I haven't looked back, and it's been no big deal. However, history is a little more important because it is through history that we learn the story of ourselves, and we learn from that story. And we have people who slept through history classes. And they're starting to get their historical and political information from memes. Wow. Do you know what credentials you have to create a meme? Do you know how difficult it is to create a meme? Let's say that I don't know anything about sewing, but I do know that there's something called a whip stitch. But let's say that I put out a meme. I have no credentials in sewing that says, you know what, everybody who uses a whip stitch should be executed. I have no credentials to say that, but you want to know what I do have? I do know how to make a meme. Yeah, me, a 54-year-old technologically challenged fart can make a meme. I can make a meme that says that. It's not difficult. I have no credentials, but I can put it out there, and if it's shared and goes viral, I've got millions of people who are out there ready to execute all the whip stitchers. That's how easy that is. This is the most biting episode that I have produced, the next 3 episodes. And I hope you stick with it, and I hope you share it. I'm going to get a little more serious now. I have avoided using a certain comparison for the simple reason I did not want to allow my thoughts to wander into what I think is pure evil. However, I'm no longer going to contain myself from the obvious comparison. At heart, I'm an historian. At heart, I'm a theologian. I have a degree in history education. I have a degree in theology. I have a degree in religious education. And I am certainly not coming from the perspective of some redneck whose education centers around the memes he or she agrees with. No, I am coming from the perspective of a redneck who has a deeper understanding and study of history and religion. But as I will illustrate, the ways and means of our current president is eerily similar to another goofy-looking, mentally skewed narcissist from the 20th century. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you my concern that President Trump is using the blueprint created by the Nazi Party. I know it sounds weird and it sounds a little conspiratorial and it sounds a little bit out there, but I am going to use facts to prove my point. You know how Hitler rose to power? In 1933, Germany's government, they came up with the Enabling Act. And that law, in effect, said that the Chancellor, Hitler, had power to enact laws without the involvement of the Reichstag or the Congress. So basically, it's like Trump when he puts out these executive orders. You know, those would be laws in Germany from 1933 through the regime of the Nazis. Now, the Enabling Act gave Hitler powers and followed on with the heels of another act called the Reichstag Fire Decree. The Reichstag Fire Decree had abolished most civil liberties and transferred state powers to the Reich government. The combined effect of the two laws, the Enabling Act and the Reichstag Fire Decree, transformed Hitler's government into a legal dictatorship. And that's how Hitler became Hitler. Now, what was the power that fueled the Enabling Act, and what was the power that fueled the Reichstag Fire Decree? It was fear of communism. We need to pass these acts and have a strong authoritarian government to keep the communists out. And what's the first thing the Nazi Party did? They decided they had to take control of the press. When Hitler took power in 1933, the Nazis controlled less than 3% of Germany's 4,700 newspapers. Less than 3%. And newspapers, you think, so what? What's the big deal about a newspaper? Nobody reads newspapers. Everybody read newspapers then. They weren't getting the news from TV because it was barely around. They weren't getting their news from the radio, maybe a little bit. And they certainly weren't getting it from the internet because Al Gore hadn't invented it yet. So the elimination of the German multi-party political system brought about the demise of hundreds of newspapers produced by newly outlawed political parties. So now that the political parties were outlawed, the papers that supported them, they were outlawed too. They fell by the wayside. Now, it also allowed the state to seize the printing presses and equipment of the communists and social democratic parties, which were often turned over directly to the Nazi Party. So in the following months, the Nazis established control of the press. They exerted influence over the independent press organizations. And during that time, the Nazi regime deployed the radio, press, and newsreels to stoke fears of a pending communist uprising. They then channeled popular anxieties, which we call fear, into political measures that eradicated civil liberties and democracies. Sound familiar? Use fear. People say, oh no, we need someone to protect us. We'll give the power to someone else. SA and members of the Nazi elite parliament in formation, the SS took to the streets to brutalize, to arrest political opponents, and incarcerate them in hastily established detention centers and concentration camps. Nazi thugs broke into opposing political party offices, destroying printing presses and newspapers. Now let's back up to 1919. Hitler became a propagandist for the state. His first state job, he was a propagandist. And as a propagandist, he started the Second World War. As a propagandist, he defined the Jews as Germany's foe. The formation of his propaganda was inextricable from its content, the fictionalization of a globalized world into simple slogans, to repeat until the enemy thus defined was exterminated. Oh, what did I just say? It's like this. You come up with a slogan, blame it on the Jews. Blame what on the Jews? It doesn't matter, blame it on the Jews. You put that in your papers, you put that on ads, you take posters and you put them around town, you put them all around the country, blame it on the Jews. And before long, people stop questioning, well, blame what on the Jews to what? Yeah, let's blame it on the Jews. Blame what on the Jews? Everything on the Jews. Thus, you've made an enemy of the Jews. Hitler was a master at that. Now, Hitler and the Nazis had found a simple slogan that they repeated again and again to discredit reporters, to discredit press. And that German word is Lügenpresse, which in English is translated fake news. So now I'm going to turn to the other man that we're looking at in comparison and let him speak for himself.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? No, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are attacking our news organization. Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state, Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you state
She's
categorically,
asking a question. Don't
Mr.
be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
No, you know what? You're creating violence by your questions. You know, you are creating you. And also, a lot of the reporters are creating violence by not writing the truth. The fake news is creating violence. And you know what? The people that support Trump and the people that support us, which is a lot of people, most people, many people, those people know what a story is true and they know what a story is false. And I'll tell you what, if the media would write correctly and write accurately and write fairly, you'd have a lot less violence. I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake. A few days ago, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people. Because they have no sources, they just make them up when there are none. I saw one story recently where they said 9 people have confirmed. There are no 9 people. I don't believe there was 1 or 2 people. 9 people. And I said, give me a break, because I know the people. I know who they talk to. There were no 9 people, but they say 9 people. And somebody reads it, and they think, oh, 9 people, they have 9 sources. They make up sources. They're very dishonest people. In fact, in covering my comments, the dishonest media did not explain that I called the fake news the enemy of the people, the fake news.
Quiet, quiet. It's a joke. The leaks are absolutely real. The news is fake. Okay, sit down. I understand the rest of your question. Now that's what I call a nice question.
If I lost every vote, we would have won the state of Pennsylvania. And the fake news refused to call it, right? They refused to call it. So here was the story by the fake news. The president was 15 minutes late for the Queen. Wrong. And then here's the rest of the story. No, here's the rest. Here's the rest of the story. So they said I was late when I was actually early, number 1. Number 2, I guess the meeting was scheduled for 15 minutes, and it lasted for almost an hour. The president overstayed. So I was late and I overstayed, and honestly, folks, it was such a beautiful, beautiful visit and afternoon. But they can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
Good evening, Orlando.
You know, I said, this is a very big arena. For a Tuesday night, I said, you know, if we have about 3 or 4 empty seats, the fake news will say headlines. He didn't fill up the arena, you know. 2016 was not merely another 4-year election. This was a defining moment in American history. Ask them right there. By the way, that is a lot of fake news back there. That's a lot. This election is not merely a verdict on the amazing progress we've made. It's a verdict on the un-American conduct of those who tried to undermine our great democracy and undermine.
The fake news media is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people.
It's true, 100%. Not the media. I'm glad you're finally quoting it correctly, because they like to leave the fake news.
Okay, but that's what you said.
The fake news. So
But
The
here's,
people
here's,
that are supporting me in particular, they're very smart people. They're hardworking, brilliant, great people. They know when the news is fake. And they get angry when they see all of the fakeness. Frankly, the networks.
There have been people who've been critical of other presidents. No president has liked his press coverage. John Kennedy, in your Oval Office, canceled the subscription to the New York Herald Tribune. Nobody called it the enemy of the American people.
Chris, I'm calling the fake news is the enemy. It's fake. It's phony.
But
They'll
a lot
take
of times,
something
sir, it's
good.
just news you don't
No,
like.
it's not. No.
So let's break a few things down here. People have short attention spans. Oh, sorry. People have short attention spans. They do. So instead of reading a long book, an article in a reputable magazine, or going online to a reputable organization to read an article, it's much easier and less time-consuming to read something that's boiled down to just a few words and a meme. And Hitler realized this, so he would put together little short phrases and put those out there, and the people would follow them because Hitler knew something, that people are inherently lazy and they don't like to learn. They like to be told something. So that's how Hitler got his whole horde of followers to hate Jewish people, because in a few short words he could say, blame it on the Jews. And that's not much different than what Donald Trump does today. He puts everything into a little tweet with 126 characters that is going to blame someone for all the ills of the world. And sticking with the subject we're talking about here, let's talk about fake news. Let me tell you something. In 2016, when he was elected, took office in 2017, and he started throwing this term around, fake news, any historian who has studied much about the Second World War and the rise of the Nazi Party suddenly put on the brakes. Whoa. Fake news? Where have I heard that before? Where's that coming from? Oh yeah, Hitler used that term, fake news, because if you can turn the people against the free press and you can tell them how to think instead of letting them think for themselves, you can now control people. You have your own little drones to do what you want to do because they believe you and no one else. So when Trump gets up here and you saw in the video montage, it was a lot of fake news, trust me, you're fake news, I'm telling people the truth, you're evil, I'm telling people the truth. He's really just following a blueprint that's been around for, I don't know, about 90 years. Probably used before the Nazi Party, but I don't want to get too involved into history. So when people are concerned that maybe he's a little bit of a dictator, he has dictatorial aspirations, that isn't something that's just come over the last few months when the coronavirus, and he's saying stuff like, well, I may not leave office, we will have to contend the election if I lose, and Biden having to say, well, I might have to get the military to extradite him if he loses, because it doesn't appear that he wants to leave. Of course he doesn't want to leave because his ego won't allow him to understand that he lost. But anyway, I'm digressing now. Point is this. Point number one, Hitler blamed the press. Trump blames the press. Trump is using Hitler's term. Comparison? Yeah. Coincidence? Hell no. There are enough people educated in his party to say, you know what? Yeah, the Nazis used it, but it worked for them. It'll work for us too. Thank you once again for joining us. Episode 7 of From the Cheap Seats. Remember that next week is episode 8, and it's going to be a continuation of our theme, Trump and the Nazi Party. Yeah, I hate putting it that way, but because I sound like some sort of a wacko, spasmodic, weird-thinking human being. But hey, the facts are the facts, and I'm just trying to present the facts. And if you want to look up the facts for yourself, please look in the comment section of this episode, and you will find the links that I am using. And don't forget to tell your friends, spread the word, try to get a lot of people to watch me from the cheap seats. Maybe one day I'll be popular and famous and you'll see me on like a Thanksgiving Day float, which would be pretty darn cool, even though I hate parades. But anyway, join us next week for part 2 of Trump and the Nazi Party. Thank you.